On that day, Dr. Peasley, the principal, came into the classroom. He tapped me on the shoulder and he said, I'm apologizing, but I have to take you out in the hallway. And when I stepped in the hallway, I was arrested by 2 FBI agents. They took me downstairs. That school was a 5-story building. And we went downstairs, and I got my top coat because it was a little chilly, like today. And we went to pick up my brother, who was then working at Burger Brewery. And I got this arrest warrant considerably later, but that's the presidential warrant of my arrest. And I think it was typical of the way the government handled the arrest. You never really got to see the arrest warrant when you were arrested. A lot of guys were arrested on the job. Some people were arrested at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and when you talk with other internees like I do, there are some real horror stories about parents, both parents being arrested with little kids left behind, and they don't tell them where they're going. They don't know where they're going. When I was arrested, my buddies told me they tried to talk to the FBI and see if they could communicate with me, and they said absolutely not. So then they took me to the Hamilton County Workhouse. Sylvester Stallone made a movie there about 1995 or so, just before they tore it down, because it was a typical ancient prison. And they had a 3-tier prison inside the building, single cells with the bed hanging off the wall with a chain, and the toilet was a bucket, and a galvanized bucket in the corner, and there was no water. But the thing is that I'm a 17-year-old, and the guards went around saying, "We've got these 2 Nazis. What are you going to do with them in the morning when we open up the cell doors for breakfast?" And man, all night long, I thought I was going to be killed the next morning. But fortunately, their bark was a lot worse than their bite, and they didn't do anything. But after breakfast, which was terrible, and not because I was a German internee, but it was terrible for anybody in that place. It was totally unfit for human consumption. And we were given our clothes back to go back to downtown for a hearing. And then they handcuffed us, and from between the parking garage and the federal building for the hearing, the FBI guy said, "Well, put your coat over the handcuffs so that people can't see you're handcuffed." And I was a smart aleck, and I said, "Well, just take them off. They won't see them either, you know." But anyway, we went up there, and they immediately took my brother into the hearing, and they gave me a great Danish and coffee, and I was reading the very paper I was supposed to deliver that morning. It said 2 brothers arrested. They will have a hearing. They will be interned. But of course, my parents were already interned, so that was no big surprise. And then they took me in there, and incidentally, under the Freedom of Information Act, the only thing I never got back was any of the minutes of the hearing. And the hearing was, I believe, chaired by Dr. Walter, who president of the University of Cincinnati. And but I do remember one question, and I think they said it because they didn't really think through. They asked me if my cousin in Germany And they knew he was in the Hitlerjugend and in Germany, and they knew he was probably about to be inducted in the service in Germany. And I said, well, if he came up the Ohio River in a U-boat and knocked on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning, what would you do? And well, I did remember my Mark Twain, by the Mark Twain, that the river only draws so many feet. I figured, man, it would be kind of strange to see a submarine on top of the Mississippi and then the Ohio. And so I told him that, and that was the high point of the hearing. And after that, they took us to the house, and they said, take enough clothes for 2 days. And then they took us back to the workhouse, right here. And that was the last time we ever saw the house. Because a little bit, being a vacant place, it was looted, and the fire marshal sent letters to my father, who's interned in Crystal City. What are you going to do about it? And my father offered to go back to board it up and things like that. And they said, well, you can go back and do that, but you will have to pay for 3 guards. All of their expenses, and you can do anything you want and come back. And of course, being the most he ever earned as a baker, my father was a baker, and always worked for somebody else. It was something like $35 a week, because just remember, it was Depression time before that, and nobody had a lot of money in those days. So I wouldn't want to. I don't want to lay anything on a Depression about anything, because everybody was poor. Well, then they took us to, the next morning, they took us to 4800 Ellis Avenue in Chicago. It's an old mansion. And on the way, they put a belt around my brother with a loop here and a handcuff. And they did the same thing to me. And then they handcuffed us together. And then when we had to make a comfort stop halfway to Chicago, because there were no expressways in those days, the guard, it was a federal marshal in that case, he cuffed himself to my brother on one side, and we went to the comfort thing in sequence. Now on Ellis Avenue, on Easter Sunday in 1943, these 37 guys signed a book. The inside cover of my brother's book, and it has Jewish people on it. It's got a Catholic priest, Father Schmucker, who was assigned to the Holy See, and he wanted to avoid internment on the premise that he was really in a diplomatic service, which he was, and we had an ecumenical service because there was a Romanian priest also interned with us by the name of Father Cuckoo. And Father Cuckoo, C-U-C-U, I think is the way he spelled it, he could play a violin like a gypsy, and he could make that thing cry and laugh, and it was really a joy to just hear him play that thing. And that was one of the that was kind of a camaraderie kind of a place, and most of those men were sent to Fort Lincoln in North Dakota, and the guys that were married were sent down to Crystal City, Texas, and my parents were then transferred from Seagoville, Texas, to this family camp in Crystal City, Texas. And this family camp was designed to be run by the inmates, and